This is the Indirect Podcast. As always, Steve Schlanger here in St. Louis, Tim Ream in London, and just a few blocks over, also in London, we are joined today by Lee Dixon of NBC, formerly, of course, of Arsenal. And Lee, I have to say right off the top here, Tim was telling me earlier today just how disappointed he was, how frustrated, because it wasn't him who had the opportunity to chase Mohamed Salah around the pitch at Old Trafford this past weekend. Instead, that duty fell to Luke Shaw. And I'm sure at some point Luke Shaw got within 15 feet of him. I didn't really see it, but at some point I think he had to. The laws of physics said it had to be done. What do you make of what happened at Old Trafford with Liverpool and Man U this weekend?
Wow. Where do we start? I was talking to Graham Lasso. We were a three-man booth with Arlo, and we were talking before the game. When we got to Old Trafford, there was a strange atmosphere. I think it was normally those games are really, as Tim will know, you can't they're electric. The atmosphere, everything's buzzing. Everybody expects. Talking to Graham Lasso, that's him now. So I'll have to just fix that phone.
Good timing.
Ears are burning.
He's phoning up to try and, because we've just had all our fixtures through for December, and he's trying to phone up so he doesn't trying to arrange that he doesn't have to do the Boxing Day game. He wants that day off. I already know him. I've read the script. Yeah, so when we got there, there's a weird atmosphere, and it was a little bit different than it normally is, and I think that was based on, I think majority of the United fans at the ground had a sense from previous performances of late that maybe, and obviously how well Liverpool were playing, that maybe something was on the horizon that they didn't like, and so there was almost a feeling that perhaps they could get beaten quite heavily. I definitely sensed that before the game. Then hope kicks in when you kick off and you think, no, it'd be okay. You know, we've got Ronaldo, and it was, you know, not long into the game we realised that it was going to be one of those special Liverpool days, and a disastrous afternoon was unfolding in front of our eyes. It really was. I think Luke Shaw did catch up with Salah in the tunnel at half time. I saw them going off together, so I think that was the closest he got.
Do you think that it was more a case of Liverpool in scintillating form, or more a case of Man United just not connected, not together, in disarray?
Well, I think we certainly on the broadcast at the weekend, we had to be careful and keep checking ourselves to make sure that we weren't forgetting about how well Liverpool played, because it was so in your face that United were so bad that we kind of, you know, you had to keep saying, yeah, but Liverpool were really, really good, and they were scintillating. That's probably the best I've seen them play this season. We've seen some brilliant games already, and I think the fact that it was against United, it really brought it home how well they were playing, how much. We did say before the game that if United were going to win the game, it would probably be a bit of brilliance from one of their star players, you know, a Ronaldo or a Greenwood or a Rashford would get a great goal, and you felt as if Liverpool team was just going to be too strong for United, and it was going to be a team effort, and you never got that sense. Even in the warm-up, we were saying somebody's got to score for United, somebody's special, and you just felt that Liverpool were just going to play their game. You kind of know what they're going to do, you know what type of game they're going to play, and with this United team right now, I have no clue what they're going to do next, and I don't think, you know, that's a sign that most of the players on the pitch don't know that as well, and it's more evident when they haven't got the ball than it is when they have got the ball. But even so, when they have got the ball, they're very much off the cuff. You know, they're not really a counter-attacking side, because half the time some of them are pressing and half are dropping off. So there's no pattern at all. So they're really difficult to work out right now.
Yeah, I mean, we had finished our game at Forest and got on the bus to head back down, and I mean, we couldn't actually believe what the score was at halftime. and to see that, well, we said the same thing. We said, well, what do they do now? Where do they go from here? I mean, everybody over here has been talking about the performances haven't been there. The changing room, he's lost the changing room, and the players are a little bit unsettled. And I mean, as you touched on it, Lee, as a player, going into stadiums when
Yeah.
things are off and there's not that buzz about the place.
Yeah.
Listen, there should be a buzz. You're playing Liverpool. It's United Liverpool. There should be a buzz, even if even if they are feeling a little bit edgy, with the way things have gone. But I mean, like I said, we said the same thing. It's just to lose 5-0 to one of your biggest rivals is, I mean, there's not many words to describe it, but it'll be interesting to see where they go, because they do seem really disjointed, disconnected. They're not a counterattacking team. They have good individuals. I don't think they're a disciplined team. You look at what happened with Pogba coming on and getting a red card, and it just doesn't seem like it's a really good at the moment, and that's
Well, I think,
that's hard to see.
yeah, I think the fact that he is a club legend has both helped him in the early days, but it's also now, it's kind of, I think the players, if you've got that disjoint of how you're playing, and you want, as a player, you always want to blame the manager and say, well, the tactics are wrong or whatever. They have to take huge amount of responsibility for their own performance. You know that better than anyone. As a defender, you kind of got, this is what I'm going to do every day and every week when I go out, and then we have a way of playing within, and you play within that structure. But I think now the players, it'd be interesting to see the next few weeks whether or not any of them turn on him, because with that, I mean, losing the dressing room as such, but there's not been an awful lot coming out up until now. But when you look at what's going on the pitch, it is a coaching, managerial problem, because if they're not, they're all talented players. If they're not carrying out his plans and what he wants to and how he wants to play, then it's the players' fault. Now, it's quite obvious that they don't, they're so, right, we press, three of them press at once, or one of them presses, some of them dropping off. So there's obviously, they're not doing it from Monday to Friday on the training pitch in order for it to be a drilled full back. We play with our off the cuff skill when we've got the ball, and we can break and do our brilliant Ronaldo stuff. But if things are going badly, well, every team I've played in, we've always gone, well, we just fall back into our shape, whatever that shape is. It might be a pressing shape, it might be a drop off counter attack, but there's something going on that you can always fall back on. They haven't got that, and that has to be the coach, and it has to be the manager. That's not the players, because the players, are given structures and ways to play. So you have to look at Ole and say, well, why is Fernandez going to press on his own, and then halfway towards the centre half, looking over his shoulder and going, well, I'm on my own here. Where's everybody else? That's a breakdown. This should be, he should know that he can't go on his own until he gets a shout from behind, or he's the trigger. When he goes, he drags everybody with him. But at the moment, nobody knows what's going on. So that, to me, that's a coaching thing. So I don't like to see any, and I'll never call for managers to get sacked. That's not my position. It's to me to point out what things I've learned playing football and what my opinion is on something. But to say, well, he should be sacked now, he needs to get knuckled down and start doing some work on the training pitch.
And it's always a difficult thing when you consider whether or not to replace a manager, and especially at a place like Manchester United. If you step back and think about it, in the sport of football and in any sport at a major level worldwide, whether it's the NBA and basketball, American football with the NFL, baseball, hockey, I don't know if there's another manager's position in all of sports that is more scrutinized than the manager at Manchester United. It's a daily thing. all the time. So you're always going to have these questions, but then you have to be careful because let's say you do decide to replace him. What's the option? Who's better? And who's available? And if you don't have someone who is another step up from where Solskjaer is right now, you could set the club back. And those are questions that fans don't ask. They just want a change for change's sake. And sometimes that can be worse than sticking with the guy you got.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think up until the weekend, I think he was always, he was always going to. They weren't going to sack him. There was a project. They were going to say, right, we'll go to the end of the season and then we'll reassess or whatever. But I think the pressure that's building certainly over the last few days, they're talking about the next 3 games are pivotal in his, in whether he lasts or not. So, and again, I said it at the weekend, Man United, with the talent they've got and the individuals they've got, not saying they're going to, but they quite easily could go and win all 3 of those games. And they could, on a one-off day, they could win all 3. And then all of a sudden, the bus is back on the road and Ollie's at the wheel again. And it's like, oh, well, so it's a real crossroads at the moment. And obviously they've got 3 big games coming up, and it's going to be interesting to see what personnel he picks, and how he and what shape he goes, and whether they do try and be a shape as opposed to just playing off the cuff.
I mean, I don't envy him. That's for sure. I don't think anybody envies any manager that's gone in there after Sir Alex has left, because he's basically ruined it for anybody else who's come behind him. And I say that in the best possible sense because of what he built at the club, and now, he was greatness. He got the superstars and all these guys to play together, to play as a unit, to play as a team, and win trophies. And everyone who's come after has struggled to do that. And I mean, there's no doubt it's really, really hard to get those types of players and the, like you said, the amount of talent that they have gelling and playing together and all on the same page. Because let's face it, Lee, that there's always different agendas. Players have different ideas, different things that they want to accomplish, and it's difficult. But I mean,
that's where Sir Alex was brilliant. Not only
absolutely
his man management skills, but his ability to be able to go with the big stars. No one was bigger than him. No one was bigger than the club, and to be able to go, right, no, this is how we're playing, and you work your sort. I mean, David Beckham's a perfect example of that. Not the most talented footballer in the world by any shape of the imagination. He was born with a certain amount of talent, far more than me. But what I'm saying is, he's not a Ronaldo, or he's not a, but he was put in a framework where he was one of the hardest working players they had. And so, people going, oh, he was, the skill, he was a flair player. He worked hard. You ask Gary Neville how hard he works. He covered him for 10 years in front of him, and the amount of work rate he got. And when you're playing against that, Nigel Winterburn on that side, when he was playing, he never really came on my side. I had enough on my plate with Giggsy, so it was kind of, I'll have him over here and you can have Beckham. And they never really swapped wings. It wasn't, nowadays you get obviously inverted wingers swapping over, and they never, Giggsy always stayed on the left and David always stayed on the right. But Nigel always used to say, and it was the same with Ryan as well, it's just like, whether they have a good game or a bad game, you are in for 90 minutes of non-stop up and down on your game, otherwise you've had it. And every time you make a run forward, they'll be chasing you back, and it's like, can't you just do what wingers normally do and give up? Like, without making that run. So Sir Alex made them all work equally as hard, and that was the beauty of why they were so successful. And you've got players now who, Ronaldo's arguably the world's best player ever, and so you've got him in the team now, albeit towards the end of his career. But there's a lethargy about United when you look at them. They don't snap into shape. They don't snap into their positions. It's kind of like It's almost like how, you look at Pogba and he's like, oh God, you just want to shake him and say, you're at Man United. That's not acceptable here. You have to do your work, and the next manager's that's gonna be his first job, whoever it may be, is to get them, in a shape and working their socks off.
You know the saying
And
over here. They want it all their way. They don't want to.
yeah.
They're not willing to do the dirty, the hard bits, you know the work off the ball in order to be able to show what they have with the ball. And when you, especially at the biggest clubs, when you don't do that, you're in for trouble like they got with.
Yeah.
And that's why I wonder, is Ronaldo a good thing or a bad thing for United at this particular point?
I wasn't when he signed. It was sensational from the league's point of view, and obviously we broadcast to America with NBC. It was like brilliant for us because you've got you want him in the league because he's box office. But from if I was at United, certainly maybe if I was a fullback, it gives you a bit of a different option. But certainly, if I was a midfield player or a wide player, I'd be like, why have we signed him? What is the, is that just an impact, 1 year, 2 year? Okay, but what does that do to Greenwood? What does that do to Sancho? What frame of mind does it put them in? There's a lot of pluses with it because there's no doubt that having somebody like that Monday to Friday on the training pitch would be invaluable, just to be able to, because I would imagine, I've never trained with him, but I know he trains and works very hard, and I presume he's still doing that and staying out longer than anyone to take free kicks. And so as a young kid, you would learn an awful lot from watching him train, what he eats. I believe he came in and he had a word with the canteen people who supply the food and said we shouldn't be eating that and we shouldn't be eating this. And he's been quite vocal in his kind of sharing his knowledge of how to look after yourself. So things like that will be good. But I didn't think, oh, he's going to take United to the next level, because you could already see the mayhem behind him, what was going on in midfield and the way that they're set up. And he's not going to change that, because he can't change that. He's up the other end of the pitch doing, and as much as he looks as if he wants to be involved in the coaching side of things and being very vocal. We've seen that for when he's been playing for Portugal. I don't think he's got that influence over 30 yards further down the pitch. That's not really, because he's not particularly a good presser anyway. He never has been. He never was when he was there first time round. They kind of allowed him to get up. He's probably one of the few players who was allowed to get away with not working quite as hard off the ball as the rest of them when he was at United the first time round. So he's not going to improve on that now. So yeah, I mean, good signing from the shirt sales point of view, and he will get probably 15 goals in the season, and then, but the rest of the team I don't think he benefits from him other than him scoring.
Do you think they defer to him more than maybe they should, and they have not relied
Probably,
on
yeah.
one person? The way, looking at it from a player's perspective, if someone like himself comes in and you think, okay, he could have a positive influence, but how much? I mean, you referenced there the shirt sales, the marketing, obviously the club is already huge, but the interest in the league, grows with him because he's come back. But do the players, and I've read a few things here and there about guys, he comes in and guys are already in kind of in awe. They're not eating the same way anymore. They're changing little things here and there, but just on the pitch, I feel like it would be easy for guys to be like, right, I just need to get this ball to him and let him do his thing, and then it just becomes a one-man show.
Well, yeah, but I think the danger with that is that they have got a lot of talent in the team anyway, and I think you find, you look at Fernandez's role in the side when Ronaldo's there. He looks like, I'm not saying there's a clash, but there's certainly a focal point in Fernandez when Ronaldo wasn't there. Now all of a sudden there's somebody else up top and he is very demanding. He takes up really good positions, albeit not quite as expansive as he used to, because he's not getting around the pitch like he used to. But he's definitely will be a focal point, and even more so now if you look at maybe playing without structure and desperation creeps in. And if I'm playing at fullback, I'm trying to get it to Ronaldo every time I can, hoping he's going to get me something. It's like, come on, we're in trouble here. So yeah, it's interesting moving forward how that pans out, because he's he left him out, and Sir Alex Ferguson came out and was vocal and said you don't leave your best players out, and then all of a sudden he's played ever since then. So he's almost sort of been put under pressure from Sir Alex by saying that, and he's a young manager, he's bound to feel the job's a huge, as you know, it's just a huge, gigantic thing, isn't it? Being manager of Man United.
Yep.
And for the young players like Greenwood and Sancho and Rashford and all of these players who are trying to break through and reach that next level, if you think about it, Ronaldo became who he is by being a player who hunts for goals. He demands the ball, he wants the ball, he has that appetite for scoring, right? So to find a player who can replicate that, to be anything close to the next Ronaldo, they have to have that same mentality. But now you're sort of in a situation where if you're a Jadon Sancho and you find yourself in an attacking position with the ball in the final third and in a position where you may legitimately want to take a shot or make some kind of offensive move, you might be thinking, do I need to pass it to Ronaldo? Should I be passing it to Ronaldo? Is he going to be mad if I don't? And if you get those sorts of thoughts creeping into your head, that can't be a good thing, right?
No, to be honest with you, I think Sancho needs all the help he can get. If he can pass it to Ronaldo, it's probably a good thing, because he's not hit the ground running by any means, and I think he's got an awful lot of work to do with that. Not his fault. The price tag's not his fault, but he's he's not come in and he's not been in the side, from day one, and he's not in the England team. He's not getting the minutes in at United. He might do now. They might swap it around, but it's a learning curve for him right now. So there might be a temptation to sort of get the ball and think my best chance to try and play with somebody is Ronaldo. But I just that's with the ball again. I think that's the least of their problems. It's without the ball that, if you look at the 10 games now at home without a clean sheet, it's Man United. There's 10 games without a clean sheet at home. It doesn't make lost my headphones. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, how can you go to that place where you're conceding virtually every time you go out at home at Old Trafford? There's no confidence at all.
Well, beyond Man U, let me ask you this, Lee.
Go on.
Right now, who is the best team in the Premier League?
Liverpool. That would be my. It's quite an easy one coming off the back of the weekend. But I think, last season was it's always difficult to retain the Premier League. I was lucky enough to win the league 4 times, and then we never got close at winning it 2 years in the trot. It's really difficult. You've got a big target on your back. Everybody's, wow, here's the champions. And last season for them, it was almost like a free one, because they had so many injuries they couldn't possibly compete. So it was kind of like, we've taken them out the equation. Liverpool were out the equation pretty early on last season, and it was just horrific for them. Not only losing their 3 centre-backs at times, but that took away their midfield as well, because they had to fill in with Henderson and Fabinho, all played their part as centre-back, and it just completely decimated their squad. And this season, they didn't really make too many signings, and yet they've come back with a fit squad, and it's like they've been revitalised. They've got the hunger back. They look incredibly sharp and focused going forward. The defence looks solid again. Midfield, everyone talks about Wijnaldum leaving is going to be a huge gap for him, and I thought the same. And it's almost like, Keita's stepped up a little bit, and I think I've always thought he's got more to offer, and maybe we're going to. I know he's just got injured again, but maybe we're going to see the emergence of him again, and that midfield. Henderson was outstanding again at the weekend, and so at the moment, I would say Liverpool, but that's with my trying to not be biased towards Man City, because I'm a Man City fan. I was born in Manchester, a blue family through and through, so I'm kind of like trying to leave them alone and let them get on with it, so I don't jinx them.
I see what you've done there. See what
I did.
So he thinks Man City, but he thinks Man City, but he had to say Liverpool. I see it. I got you.
Much, yeah, you've got me. Rumbled. But I think we're in this particular season, and we say every year, let's hope we get a title race. Let's hope it's it's Liverpool and Man City, and we've nearly had some really good run-ins, but it's not quite gone to the wire. But this year, I think, because the teams at the top are so strong and just below, with West Ham, Leicester will come again. We're still not even talking about Arsenal and Tottenham, quite rightly so, because they've been way off the pace. But with Chelsea as well, we've got a real chance of having three. I think United will probably fall away, or have fallen away already. But I think if say they replace Ole and get a new manager, I don't know who that would be, but say they did and they got revamped again, and then after Christmas they came, they're all going to take points off each other, because every week there seems to be one of the big guys playing one of the others. So I think we're in for potentially the best league we've had for many a year, since back in 1989 when we beat Liverpool 2-0.
You're hoping for a 2012, aren't you?
Yeah. Exactly.
2012 would be if this year can replicate that with more than two teams, that would be exciting. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and I think we've got a real chance of that. And you look at we 8-9 games in, whatever it is, we're not far off Christmas, and that's normally. For me, it was always a time where you kind of you churn through Christmas because you've got so many games, and then you can just take a breather and have a quick look at the league just after Christmas, going into the FA Cup weekend, the first weekend of Christmas. You can kind of go, right, where are we in the league? And you go, oh wow, right, and then you don't look at it again until Easter, when you get in sort of April time. Don't look at it again and then you'll give you your last push going into the end of the season. You're allowed to look at it from April onwards, but I only glance at it up until then.
Correct.
Well, it was right around that holiday period last year that Chelsea made the change and replaced Lampard with Tuchel, and clearly, I mean, that had as dramatic an impact as we have seen, and clearly that's not always going to happen. It's very rare that you take a team and all of a sudden make a run like they went on, but when you have the talent, it can happen, and he had the talent at Chelsea. If there's a change at Man U, there's talent to be molded and shaped there, so you can't rule them out of potentially making a run. When it comes to Man City, the conventional curiosity right now seems to be, are they going to be able to withstand the pressure of a Liverpool or a Chelsea without that number 9, without having signed that true number 9? How valid is that? How much of an issue is that going to be long term, do you think, Lee?
Well, I mean, you can never write anything down and attribute it to it's because of this, because Pep's done that, or Pep's done this, because he writes the rule book himself. He rewrites how football is, not how football's played, because it's basically, I'm quite old school when it comes to formations and tactics, and I get, don't get me wrong, I'm not a dinosaur, and I don't go, but in our day 4-4-2 always, that was it, and that's just, teams should go back to that. It all goes around in cycles, and 4-4-2 has done and will do again, sort of creep back into people's thoughts, because once everybody starts matching up formations, then the one that changes the formation first normally has a bit of a go. And if that's 4-4-2, because everyone's playing, 4-2-3-1 or whatever, there's only 11 players on each side, and there's only a certain amount of space on the pitch. So however you set up, there's always going to be a weakness and a strength somewhere else. So it's just a matter of whoever's clever enough to work out. Pep obviously is a little bit, thinks out the box a little bit and does strange and wonderful things. But ultimately, it's about wherever you are on the pitch, it's about passing to the other guy who's got the same colour shirt on, and quickly. That pretty much sums up all your tactics rolled into one. So you can jazz it all up and say, yeah, but they're doing this and they're doing that. Ultimately, you just pass it quicker to the other person's shirt nearer their goal, and they get it and put it in the net, and that's it. So, but he's
simple game.
It's
simple
game. Absolutely, and it's us Nuggets who complicate it all. And
it's true.
It is, but he does it in a way that that people, when he does things and he whacks his fullbacks in front of his centre halves and plays a box and doesn't play anybody wide and gets his wingers standing on the touchline and not coming in, and everybody goes, he's a genius. Well, he is, but he's only looking at the space on the pitch and the green bits and going, that green bit over there has not got anybody in it. Why don't we go and put a player over there? And then they see what they do. And then all of a sudden, you've moved a couple of players over there, and you say, oh, well, our player can now run into that bit of grass over there. And so it's just, I mean, oh God, these headphones, sorry. These, it's just, I'd forgotten what the question was.
Without a true number 9.
Man City number 9. I can tell you where this is going.
Yeah.
I can tell you where this is going after, but I'll let you finish.
So my answer to that is, how long can he go? Yeah, well, he tried obviously to sign Harry Kane, so he didn't think it perhaps could last as long as it has done, because he was trying to sign a centre forward. He hasn't done that. I think maybe, and I'm not, I don't know. I haven't spoke to him. He's not a friend of mine, so he hasn't told me secretly that he's kind of quite chuffed with how it's gone without a number 9, and we're doing okay, and maybe we'll just stay like this. But it's not. I don't think he's got his inbox over here with all these pieces of paper on. I don't think it's on the top right now. I think he's the number 9's probably a bit further down. We'll get round to that in a minute. If one comes available, and I think he's done with. I think he's done with Harry Kane now. I don't think he'll go for him in the summer. I don't think he'll go down that road again. He's a very. I'm not saying I don't know if stubborn's the right word, but I think he's had his nose pushed out of joint with that one. And he's like, right, that's done. Let's see what else is about. And the fact that he's got, I don't know, 5 or 6 of the best midfield players in world football, all dipping in and out of that position and scoring goals at the same time, is incredible. And it's down to his sort of lateral thinking about how that position is played that makes him a genius, really.
All right, Tim, you saw where this was going. What'd you see?
Of course I see where it's going. Well, I mean, based on our previous episodes, our previous conversations, would a certain player that plays in yellow and black be high on the list from Germany?
Well, he's got to be high on somebody's list, hasn't he? Somebody's going to snap him up.
I mean, we've had this conversation, haven't we, Steve? We were discussing. Previously we were discussing whether Grealish and Kane would both go in the same window to City, and now it seems like between Haaland and Mbappe, does one go to Spain and Madrid, and one goes to City, or does Haaland go to City, Mbappe to Real Madrid, or vice versa? I mean, those are the two guys really that everyone's looking at. Oh, he's letting his dog out. That's all right.
I was going to have to do that too. Fortunately, mine have already run upstairs, so I'm glad Lee made the first move on that.
He's just sitting there at the door going like that. So I
Right.
thought so Tim, it'd be interesting because obviously, as a player now, if you were, who would you rather play against? Would you rather play against Harry Kane or Haaland? You know, who would you rather play against? I know who I'd rather play against.
Is there a third option?
No.
C.
Yes,
Well, who?
Or
Oh,
would you
here's one of
who would
mine.
you least-
Here would I least like to play against? Probably
Yeah.
Haaland, because he's
Yeah.
just an absolute animal. And I think again, Steve and I have touched on this. He just seems like he's built for the English game.
Yeah.
Now whether City go for that, then yeah. But I just think with Kane's ankle injury history, he doesn't look like he's moving around the pitch all that great anymore. And he's what, 20, 28, 29? I just think, yeah, if you're gonna go for one, you know they go for Haaland and they tie him down for, I mean,
6 years.
he could be 6 years, but then could still be there for another 6 years after that and still performing.
Yeah, I honestly think, and I said this before, that I think Kane should have gone 2 years ago. I think that was his peak time when he was scoring and he was at his, and then the last couple of injuries, certainly ankle injuries he's had, and I don't know if you've had any ankle injuries, Tim, but that, for me, I've only had one, and that was that bothers me more now than anything else. And it's such a complex joint, the ankle, and he's had two on both of them. And I don't think you ever get over. They never get any better while you play.
No,
they don't start to get better as you get older. It doesn't happen. So they're only going one way, and his mobility now, and his mobility and the position on the pitch has changed because of his mobility. In my understanding, Haaland doesn't drop deep into midfield and start looking for the ball and hitting diagonals. He stays at the pointed end, putting the ball in the net and making the defender's life a hell. So, there's a reason why Harry Kane might say, well, he's playing in a Tottenham team that he needs to help out in other areas. I don't believe that. I think he's, if he was at Man City, he wouldn't be dropping down into midfield because they just wouldn't work. But I think he would be, if he was at City now, he would get a load of goals because he wouldn't have to move too much. So his mobility wouldn't be that much of an issue. He could just stay in the box and make little runs in front of the defenders because he gets so much ball from wide areas like they all do. That's why they score so many goals. So, but I think if you're picking one of them all day long, you must be mad if you went for Kane out of those two. Is your dog growling now at you?
Oh, you could hear that? Oh, so I thought that was he was. They're both of them. All right, so they both decide that they're gonna sort of like rough each other up, and fortunately, they're more aggressive than Man U's defense was on Liverpool's forwards the other day. They actually, But I didn't think you could hear him. So anyway, it's good ambient noise, I guess. If you look at it
listen,
that way.
this is real. This is real life. This isn't. There's no fake in this.
Right. Kids and dogs, right? It's interesting when you think about, Haaland. Obviously, in a City shirt would be terrifying for everyone else. But let's say he doesn't go there, and they just stick with the current group that they have. One thing that struck me looking back, for instance, at the Champions League final last year, Chelsea's defense was very good, and any offense individually, collectively, would have had a tough time cracking that nut, I think, in that Champions League final. But I found myself during the course of that match thinking, who's going to score for them? Who's the guy who can break this down, who could have that individual moment of brilliance? Anyone could have, but as the game grew, I didn't really have confidence that somebody was going to. And I wonder if you need to have that in a team. Do you need to have that guy that others can rely on that when you get down to the final 20 minutes, final 10 minutes of regulation, you can look to have that moment of quality?
I think they're a different side than the Champions League final now. I think they've adapted into the fact, got used to playing without the 9, and it's almost become the way they play now, and the adaptability that they've got and their flexibility to be able to, flip different players into that position, and it's kind of settling down a bit now with, who'd have thought, I don't know, 6 months ago we'd have been talking about Foden being the centre forward at Man City. You'd be like, what, are you mad? Where's he going to play? Is he going to play on the left side? Is he going to play, where David Silva played? Or no, he's going to play centre forward. You'd be like, don't be stupid. So they're certainly found a way of playing that suits. I think he's loving that position. He's loving flitting in and out, swapping with Grealish from time to time, and I think Jesus has still got stuff to offer. He gets a bit of a raw deal for me because he's always judged on his goals. It's a bit like Firmino. I think he's probably one of the first on the team sheet for Liverpool, but people have a go at him because he doesn't score as many goals as Salah and Mane. But if you ask the players at Liverpool, who their number 9 is, and they'd be like, oh, he's just an absolute dream to play with because he just gives you the ball back when you actually need it, and in the right pace and at the right position of your foot, so you can get your shot away straight away. And it's similar with City. They've got players who can play. They're turning the number 9 position into a speciality position for other teams. They don't need one. They're doing it in a different way. How long can they do it for? They're so talented. It's very difficult. And also, you asked Tim. It's like they're asking questions. I watched them. I did the game against Brighton, and they're asking questions of their big centre halves, who spent most of the afternoon on their own without anybody, and yet they got absolutely stuffed. They were 3-0 down after whatever it was because they didn't have anyone to mark. They couldn't understand. They wanted a centre forward, and City didn't give them one. They just had everybody whizzing around them. They couldn't actually latch onto a player, and the three of them really struggled to go. Well, 3 big centre backs, and they were just floundering in front of your eyes. It was brilliant to watch how you can upset some pretty solid defenders. They haven't let many goals in Brighton, and they've been solid for a few years, but they literally had no clue what to do because these diminutive, brilliant footballers in front of them were just playing hard to get.
Well, what does everyone expect? We're all big dumb center halves. That's what we are, right?
I'm glad you finally said it, Tim. I'm glad you finally said it.
So there you go. Obviously, you know what I mean? A little self-deprecation. Obviously, I mean, what it boils down to for me is yes, they're obviously playing without a number 9, but they just have unbelievable football brains. They know, and it's drilled into them on the training pitch with Pep, how to move, when to move, the movements they need to make. But at the same time, they're at that level for a reason. Their brains work much quicker than everybody else's, and their feet work quicker. They have plays. They just everything that they know what to do with a ball 2 plays ahead of time. And they know where the ball's going to go 2 plays after they've touched it. It's just, they're that good and they're that smart with and without the ball that of course they're going to go into areas and cause trouble with, with the Brighton center backs. Because they're looking, like you said, as center backs, we're used to having at least one up against us. Mm-hmm. A lot of times you're looking at 2 strikers, being up against you and dealing with that, and to then it's just like asking a center back to go out and defend in the half space or into the channel. It's it's not somewhere we want to be as a center back. I don't want to have to running behind you as you step up to the winger and they play it past you, and now I'm going out defending 1v1. It's just not it's not natural for us to not have somebody that we're dueling with on a regular basis through the 90 minutes. So it's no surprise that they're having success with their movement and ball movement without a number 9.
What I found, what I saw as well, which I hadn't realised and it had never occurred to me before, was that I was watching, the centre backs. If they're marking a centre forward and they're in front and they make little movements, you can see everything that's going on. You're looking at him and he makes some movements short, and then it's up to you to decide whether you go in with him or you stay where you are or whatever. But it's a visual thing. With City at the weekend, they were, Foden would go off to the right. He'd wander out to the right towards the left centre back, or the left wing back, and then the centre back in the middle would look over and he'd say, "Oh, he's over there." So he'd be looking at the pitch and the ball here, and then Foden would just like wander into his blind side, which you normally wouldn't. You normally wouldn't necessarily have a centre forward that, and because he'd left him, he presumed he was gone and he'd gone somewhere else, and so he kind of just like almost like tiptoed in behind. He's like, "Oh, I'm coming," and we're in the stand going, "He's behind you." It's like a pantomime. It's like, no, and he was coming from angles that the centre half was going, "Where's he come? Why did he come from there?" It's like you come from an angle because you've made a run short. They're just doing stuff that is a little bit new to and coming from positions that you wouldn't necessarily see a centre forward in, because he's just basically Foden's just doing what he wants and having a laugh. He's like, "Well,
having a good time with it, isn't he?" Yeah, having a good time with it. Yeah.
It's like when you're a schoolboy and you're out on the playground and you just decide to make plays, and you have guys that are just going in different spaces and different spots, and it kind of boils down to that. And we were talking about it earlier, Lee, and how you brought it up, the fact that beyond formations and tactics, sometimes it really is simple. Sometimes it's just about movement. And if you look back, for instance, the Man U Liverpool game this past weekend, Salah's first 2 goals. You think about the first one. It starts with Firmino with the ball on the far touchline. After a few one-touch pass sequences, by the time Salah gets the ball for the shot that leads to the goal, Firmino is on the other side of the 18. He's gone from the far touchline to the other side of the 18 when the goal is scored. For Salah's second goal, the ball starts on the near touchline with Diego Jota. Jota makes the pass diagonally into Firmino at the top of the 18, and then makes a lung-bursting run to go past him, gets the ball back before he feeds Salah, and it's that movement constantly, diagonally, in different spots that really makes such a difference.
I think both City and Liverpool especially are kind of, it's almost like, and this isn't true, but this is what it looks like. It's almost like both managers have given all of the players on the pitch permission to play any way they want, without a freedom and a without any responsibilities. They've gone, doesn't matter what happens, it doesn't matter what happens, just go and create a brilliant goal. And it's almost like they've said that, like Pep said to his players, just go and create a brilliant goal. And I don't care what happens if we get beat 8-0. It doesn't matter. We've got a free hit, and then this is a dream game. I'm making it up, and there's nothing at stake. Just go and do it. That's what the players look like they've been told, and it's obviously not. But it's just, and it's an incredible freedom that they've been given through hard work and understanding of tactics, and on the training pitch, that enable, obviously, multi-talented players. But the difference between their talent and Man United's talent individually, you might say, well, there's not that much difference in some of their best players on each side, but it's just the structure that they've been put in. Thierry told me when he went to Barcelona, he said to me that he left Arsenal, and he said he thought that was like, we're pretty much on an even keel with Spain at the time. So when he went to Barcelona, it was like, a sideward step, but a different experience for him. He wasn't looking at it to, I've gone to a new level. And the day he walked in the place and he got his kit on and he went out for his first training session, he just walking out onto the pitch, he realised he'd gone to a level beyond he'd ever experienced. And that was in the warm-up. They did a little circle, a warm-up circle, Tim, and somebody in the middle chasing the ball, and somebody just haphazardly gave the ball away and it went out the circle. Pep sent him in. I can't remember who it was now. And he just went, right, go in. And he went, what? And he went, that's not good enough. Off you go. And he was in the warm-up and he was like, and Thierry went, wow, I'm in trouble here. And it was just so structured, so disciplined. Everything was like clockwork and it was all planned, everything, the training, how long they trained, what they were doing, what runs they had to make in the games. In a game, he had to make the same run about 6 times in the first half. He had to run into the corner and almost run offside, and that opened up the space for Busquets to come into there, and Xavi would make this other run, and Eto'o would kind of run and make it up. And it was like it was written.
It was all
down.
choreographed. Yeah, choreographed.
This part,
yeah,
you run here, and then you run there, and that creates this big space here. And they do it every time. They do it all the time.
Yep.
Because they're doing it all over the pitch, it doesn't look like it's structured, but it is. He
did. Yeah. He said the same thing to me because I played with Thierry in New York.
Yeah.
And when he first came in, he said the same thing. He said, "I didn't think it was going to be a big change. It was just going somewhere different, going somewhere new, trying a new league." And he said it was just a completely different world. And he wasn't talking about the culture and the country and the league. He was talking about what they did in training, the standards that they kept, and the intensity that they played at. Because it may look, and obviously Barcelona now is not the Barcelona of then.
No.
So when Barcelona in their incredible years, as Lee was just referencing, it looked like they played with such ease, but in reality, the intensity that they played at was, to the untrained eye, you'd have no idea, but it is incredible the amount of work that they put in with and without the ball, in order to do the things that they were able to do and have the domination that they had.
You can see why Pep. Obviously this run he's on now at Man City is his longest, but you could see why after 3 years he would be, burnt out at most clubs.
Exhausted.
He's like,
yep.
I need a year off in New York. He's like, I'm just frazzled, my brain, because he's non-stop. It's like bang, 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 bang. As he's walking off the pitch, you can see him. He's got his eye on a player, and before he's gotten down the tunnel, he's like, right, boom. He's like, his brain must be frazzled by the end of the season.
I mean, you think about some of the hydration breaks that we sometimes see during the course of matches when it's warmer, and Pep gets a hold of a few of his players on the touch line, and he's making these frantic gestures. I mean, you can't listen in, but you see the way his arms are gesturing this way and that way, and he's pointing, and I don't know if he's shouting or if he's just talking loudly, but you see it's just nonstop. It's almost frantic. What must be going through his head and trying to communicate all of this and trying to get it all out, because it seems like there's just a lot just constantly percolating there, right?
Yeah, it is non-stop, and you can see, it'd be interesting to know how that affects you as a player, because I had, not to the same extent, but similar when George Graham signed me for Arsenal. It was full on. It was like absolute full-on training. We did an hour back four work every single day of my life. Monday to Friday, back four, an hour, off you go, just playing against 8 or 9 players every day, back four against the rest, and it was like drilled in. And it was like after like 2 or 3 years, you're like, God, do you know what? This is we're doing that again, really? And then you kind of, the end of the season, you're going like this with a cup, and you think, I'll do it another year then, because it worked. It was working. So you kind of like, but then he gets to the point where you can only be hit on the leg so many times with a stick, and then after a while you go, can you please stop hitting me with that stick now? I've had enough of it. So from Pep's point of view, that non-stop, consistent sort of in your ear all the time from a player's point of view, how that'd be interesting to talk to Kyle Walker, because he's always on at Kyle Walker. You see him going, and he's like, you can see him because fullbacks always get it. Tim gets away with it because he's in the middle of the pitch.
Yeah.
Fullbacks.
Oh,
get it
our
left,
fullbacks
right,
get
and
it
center.
constant. I mean,
You
and
get it from the fans.
I feel bad. I feel bad for the fullbacks because they get it in the first half. Your left back gets it in the first half, and your right back gets it in the second half, and it's like, oh, up, down, this way, do this, do that, do that, and it's like, oh my god, thank God I'm further in field because.
Well, I used to get it. I used to get it the whole of the game, because in the first half I would get it, and then I would also get it for Nigel on the left, because I'd have to pass a message on to Tony to pass it on to. George used to go, tell Nigel. I said, he's 50 yards away. How am I going to tell him? He goes, well, tell Tony to tell Martin Keown to tell him. And I was like, it's like Chinese whispers by the time it gets over there. It doesn't mean anything.
Oh, it's good.
Well, Lee, before we let you go, we always try to ask a lot of our guests this question, so I want to throw it to you as well. Okay. If you had the opportunity to wave a wand, change one rule about the game, about this game that rarely changes rules, if you think about it.
Yeah.
After all these years, all these decades, if you could change one rule to make it a better game, what would it be?
Well, it's that's a difficult question, because the game.
Maybe you know what? We should probably send this in a pre-show text so they can actually think about this.
Yeah.
I've thought about doing that, but I also like to make it spur of the moment.
Yeah.
I don't think,
and get the live reaction too.
I don't think there's that much wrong with the game. I'm not a massive fan of VAR. I think, for me, I quite like the human element of it and the mistakes, and it's a talking point. We're still getting the mistakes and talking points now, but we're blaming somebody, a machine, and so I'm not a big lover of that. Having said, so I don't think there's an awful lot to change. I think the best thing, one of the best things, it's a long answer this, sorry. One of the best things that we changed was the no back pass rule. I didn't think so at the time, because it meant a lot more work for me. When I could roll it back to the goalkeeper and get myself out of trouble, it was like the game was so easy. But then when they checked, but I thought for speed of play and how it intensified the game, I thought that was a brilliant rule change. So, and we don't change many, you're right. I think there was something I would, and it's not a rule change, it would probably be add another rule or put some more regulations and discipline things about diving and simulation. I don't think we've got that right yet. I think that that's for me the throwing yourself all over the place that's the one thing that annoys me about the game. So if I could invent a rule, and I don't know what that rule would be, an independent panel, if you were caught diving and it was proved and you had a 10-match ban, you'd stop it overnight. But they won't do that. But something like that. I'm going for a 10-match ban for a dive.
Whew.
There you go.
Wow, that
would be a change.
Full on. No, listen, I'm right there with you, because it bit us a few weeks ago. Coventry, the boy dove, and he ended up he did get a ban. He got a ban from the FA. I don't remember if it was 1 or 2 games, but but it's not really deterred him, because he's gone and done it last weekend as well. So
that's why I said 10 games.
Yeah.
See, 1 or 2 is not enough.
1 or 2 is definitely not enough.
10 games and 2 months' wages, fine.
Ooh. Oh yeah, you're not going to see any. You're going to see guys playing with all sorts of broken ankles and all sorts, just to make sure that everyone knows that it wasn't a dive.